So the reading tonight in allegory. Walking within the garden of his heart, the pupil suddenly came upon the master and was glad, for he had but just finished a task in his service, which he hastened to lay at his feet. "See, master," said he, "this is done. Now give me other teaching to do." The master, looking upon him sadly yet indulgently, as one might upon a child which cannot understand, "There are truths already, many to teach intellectual conceptions of the truth," he replied. "Thinkest thou to serve best by adding thyself to their number?" The pupil was perplexed. "Ought we not to proclaim the truth from the very housetops until the whole world shall have heard?" he asked. "And then? Then the world will surely accept it." "Nay," replied the master, "the truth is not of the intellect, but of the heart. See." The pupil looked and saw the truth as though it were a white light flooding the whole earth, yet none reaching the green and living plants which so sorely needed its rays because of dense layers of clouds intervening. "The clouds are the human intellect," said the master. "Look again." Intently gazing, the pupil saw here and there faint rifts in the clouds, through which the light struggled in broken, feeble beams. Each rift was caused by a little vortex of vibrations, and looking down through the openings thus made the pupil perceive that each vortex had its origin in a human heart. "Only by adding to and enlarging the rifts will the light ever reach the earth," said the master. "Is it best, then, to pour out more light upon the clouds, or to establish a vortex of heart force? The latter thou must accomplish unseen and unnoticed, and even unthanked. The former will bring thee praise and notice among men. Both are necessary, both are our work, but the rifts are so few. Art strong enough to forego the praise and make of thyself a heart center of pure impersonal force." The pupil sighed, for it was a sore question. Here on you. Do I read that?
Yes.
From the Path, October 1893. "We have entered on the dim beginning of a new era already. It is the era of Western occultism and of special and definite treatment and exposition of theories hitherto generally considered. We have to do as Buddha told his disciples: preach, promulgate, expound, illustrate, and make clear in detail all the great things we have learned. That is our work, and not the bringing out of surprising things about clairvoyance and other astral matters, not the blinding of the eye of science by discoveries impossible for them, but easy for the occultist. The Master's plan has not altered, but he gave it out long ago. It is to make the world at large better, to prepare a right soil for the growing out of the powers of the soul, which are dangerous if they spring up in our present selfish soil. It is not the Black Lodge that tries to keep back psychic development. It is the White Lodge. The black with fame have all the psychic powers full flower now, because in our wicked, mean, hypocritical, and money-getting people, they would soon wreck the race. This idea may seem strange, but for those who will believe my unsupported word, I say it is the Master's saying. William Q. Judge.
The roots of Western occultism. In coming to a talk like this tonight, what would we expect that the subject would be for discussion? The inquirers in the back, what did you come here to try to think you would hear. It's just a small group. Anyone in the back, a newcomer? What do you think a topic on Western occultism would entail? Yes?
I suppose to discover some secrets of nature.
Discover secrets of nature.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Well, let's start by what do we think a definition of occultism would be? Any thoughts? Yes, in the back.
Something that is secret or hidden, unknown.
Something secret.
Something that is secret or hidden, unknown.
Good comment. Something that is secret, hidden, and unknown. Another thought. Yes?
Something that's causal.
Something that, if I can put it in a larger context, really exists in a world of contrasts. How do we distinguish what is the effect of something that might be unseen as the suggestion in the back, as opposed to what is the cause? A simple analogy, we have a headache. We want to take an aspirin. We deal with the effects. But what is the cause of the headache that if we leave untreated will constantly cause those symptoms of a headache, or perhaps other unrelated symptoms, all from the same cause? From the theosophical point of view, in the context of those great teachers that are the guardians of the realities of existence, as referred to in the reading, occultism is the science of altruism. The science of altruism in practice. Applying first those laws to our individual circumstances to alter our very relationship and worldview that begins with, I am one. That illusion of separateness can be dispelled first by intellectually grasping the idea that we're part of a very word unity, unit, unos, one, and that by practice we will have eventually a realization of that non-separateness. Can we think of anything in our life that we already may have experienced that will give us a personal, innate feeling, a basis for a conviction that really everything we do affects all of life? Because this fundamental precept of non-separateness is a basis coupled to seek knowledge in order to learn to serve, which begins to negate that intellect, which is the obstacle for that direct perception of what we experience and to understand what we experience so we can act from that ideal. And let's not get caught up perhaps as we continue in specific words that in different systems of mysticism may be different, but try to grasp the idea, the intent behind the ideas. So at the very outset, we approach this reality of existence, which for the most part is unknown, is secret, not recognized. Why? Where is our attention placed in our daily life? Eating, making money, survival, all the things that keep us caught in the minutiae of the effects of what appears as separateness. It is said that the beginning to turn our attention, our understanding, to this larger perception. You know, there's the analogy, when we look at an iceberg, how much are we really seeing? Isn't the bulk of it below the surface? What about our own nature? What we usually use, what we experience, what we see of each other is akin to that iceberg. The root of our being is greater than any conditioned experience that we may be undergoing. Basic occult premise to assimilate and apply. The root of what we are is greater, other than any condition, experience, and circumstance that we may be undergoing. And like that iceberg, as the questioner pointed out in the back, there is a vast root, vast basis of great nature, because our attention and effort is not geared to try to know what that is. And with any quest, with any challenge to know, to understand, to grasp and apply, what must be the basic premise at the very start? We have the power to know. There exists in each one of us the power to know. Not just know by reading a book, but the power to know by direct perception, to know the reality, to know that which is beyond, what is unseen. And from that basis, what would we say a true definition of clairvoyance, clairaudience, all the various manifest phenomena of psychic phenomena? What can it all be reduced to in this context of true occultism? Is it just seeing what others do not see? Is it hearing what others do not hear? Touching something and getting impressions? Do we discriminate? Can we discriminate when we begin to see some of what is of the occult great nature that may be beginning to manifest to us? Can any of it be truly helpful if there is not an understanding of what we experience? Think about it. Anything that we experience, any event, if we can have the sensory effects, the emotional reaction, we can have a intellectual consideration of it. But does it get to the heart, the center, to give us understanding? The training, and I do mean training and discipline, in the true path to occultism, which begins by a voluntary self-discipline to order our life to conform to laws of great nature. Laws that are inherent in that very one life that we are all aspects of. Understanding. Have we ever heard or seen psychics on TV or mediums that begin to express what their impressions are, and they go on and almost any one topic, depending on the psychic, the medium, whatever, they will interpret whatever these impressions are according to what? The ideas that they hold about great nature, what is possible to experience in great nature, and that, whether it's voiced consciously in a series of philosophical ideas or a feeling, because most mediums and psychic, it's all on this feeling level of what they think it is. It's akin to the old story of 7 blind men asked to describe an elephant, and they're brought to the elephant. One grabs the tail, the other is experiencing the ear, the other the trunk, the other the tusk. When asked what they have experienced to give knowledge of this elephant, when they speak of the tail and give a great description, they're not lying. But does it give a true representation of the totality, the wholeness, called the elephant? And we can apply this to all the other blind men. There is a very fundamental object, a definite end in view, if one grasps the ideal, the correct motive, and what is the object to achieve, to study true occultism, the science of altruism in practice. And the analogy that is used, that the training of the occultist / adept / student of life is that perception is from the center to the circumference. I'm from that center as the observer, impersonal, uncolored by the understanding of the personality, understanding of what is experienced, not just on this plane of existence, but on any plane that one may be experiencing. Understanding is possible. And that is key to understanding the subject of occultism. That body of knowledge is not a book, not a series of things to read and accept intellectually, but a knowledge that leads to the direct perception of reality as it is. And why is that possible? Why can we make the attempt? Because at the root of our nature, impacted in what we truly are as a human being, we have the power to know. We exercise through the choices we make, where we give attention, and where we direct attention, it becomes possible to truly know, as it is, not what we think it is. There is a principle of consistency. We live in a universe that, while we may have the appearance of separateness with many different circumstances, there is the same goal. That all those experiences can lead us to, if we make the right choices based on understanding. The third ingredient to add in this effort is right motive. On every true living brotherhood, at the entrance gateway, there is written, and it's not to be seen by the eyes, "Enter all ye who seek knowledge in order to learn to serve." Implied in that is the knowing, not like a book where we study, memorize, and we hold it outside of ourselves, but the becoming of that which we seek. Assimilation unto that which is real. Assimilation as a principle to be truly understood. In this sacred endeavor, because it is a sacred endeavor, because the ultimate effect if we fulfill the laws and survive, it is said we become co-workers, an aspect of great nature herself in the dispensing of justice. There is a principle that all proceeds from compassion and those that precede us. And there is a definite path, a definite current. And that those with humility, those that began with the very fundamental premise to appear as nothing in the eyes of men, that in their sacrifice, as the reading implied, that heart force to pierce the clouds, unknown, unperceived, by their heart's blood cemented, form what is referred to in the voice of the silence as a guardian wall that protects man from evils that he cannot even comprehend at this point. The protecting of man is an aspect of those great teachers who are the custodians of this path to direct perception, a path of direct assimilation that by voluntarily working to change, to conform to an ideal, we become an aspect of that which at first is something that we think is outside of ourselves. I think it's reflected in many different religious and mystic expressions. Have we ever heard the expression, become the path you seek? Did Jesus say something to the effect of, don't follow, just a path. You have to become it. And in fact, as we change our orientation towards this wanting to know directly, which is the occult, and we'll use the definition of the young lady in the back, that which is unseen, unknown, secret, for now. Where was the knowledge of a squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is a fact of nature? Up until it became public and applied and towards the mathematics, could we say that that reality, that truth, was an occult truth, maybe part of a mathematics and science preserved in the sanctuaries of the ancient temples? There is an old saying that each of us, when we encounter another, go to a symbol, go to a book. We can only understand what we see reflected of our own understanding, what we can identify with. Part of the beginning task is the study of those words, those universal axioms, like mathematics, not to be blindly accepted because a teacher says it so, but to be tested and verified in our own circumstances. By giving attention at first to universal scripture, knowledge of that one reality, if we think of it as a guidebook perhaps, towards that which is secret and unknown to us now, what happens? What happens when we begin to encounter ideas that hold the possibilities that we can achieve because we are human? No, usually what's the excuse? We're human. It's human nature. We can't. And we use it as a rationale for staying where we are. Inherent in the challenge to become an occultist, in the truest sense of the word, an altruist, a philanthropist, a friend to all life. The ideas encounter and come into conflict with the old ideas that have been ingrained in our nature that we act on unconsciously for the most part, and we react. And an example of this. In psychology, there's something called, I got to grasp it for a second, let me see it. Stimulus generalization. What that is, if you have a fox, innately it would chase a rabbit. Likewise, though, if you take some cotton and you give it the general shape of the rabbit and put it in front of the fox, it will stimulate and cause the same reaction as if it was a real rabbit. Part of the change, giving the attention to these ideas, brings us into direct, at first, conflict, which creates an inner anxiety, a tension. Great poets refer to it as that divine discontent that keeps us searching for that which we cannot find the lie of. Giving the attention to the universal truths as we go through what is referred to in the Mandukya Upanishad, a shaping process. As the conflict of perception manifests in our life, we become aware of the contrast of those positions. The incompatibility of bases for action. And we apply what we are learning to replace that which we know in ourself and confirmed is false. There's another old mystic saying that this student loves. That which at first appears as poison, we see as life. And that which we thought gave life, we realize has been a poison. There is a complete orientation, not only to diet, but we begin to see the effect of what we think, what we permit as a concept, an idea, to find a home, how it manifests ultimately in an action. So where does it change our attention? If we're going to change a habit, reorder ourselves, make a change for ourselves, where do we give attention? Is it on the plane of results? That we can change one after the other but never deal with the cause? Or we begin to see the basis, the plane of action, is what we think. And that we act according to what we think, whether we are conscious of it or not. And this is where we get to the battlefield of the neophyte who has entered a current in the hope of truly fitting himself to be an instrument of service. It's said, and it's a shame in this version of Light on the Path, the introduction is not included. But in some of the older versions, the introduction goes somewhat like this. For all those that are ignorant of the Eastern wisdom, but who wish to enter its current. That's the beginning when we add that current includes all those through millennia that has attempted this ancient path that corresponds to the true goal of the evolution of the pilgrim soul that we are. Ultimately, it's expressed one way, such as union with spirit through concentration for the universal good. It's also said that when you go to any book whose source is of those great teachers, not only do we enter that current, but what else? We come in contact with the heart and mind of that great being, that great servant. And these great servants weren't born special. They went through and conquered every challenge that each of us faces in this evolutionary pilgrimage. But because of the repeated motive of self-sacrifice to serve, Great Nature herself opened up her secret doors, recognized a benefactor of Great Nature, and revealed her secrets. Not of here, but of here. Direct perception. And in fact, in the reading where it speaks that occultism is not of the intellect, but of the heart, and it's only the heart that can make possible this direct knowing, or what is referred to as intuition with certainty. Intuition with certainty. Think of it. Understanding in its ultimate sense. That direct perception, by evoking the claim of co-nature, entitles one, without asking, to be a knower. Is a knife good or bad? In the hands of a Jack the Ripper, look out. Look what he did with a scalpel. But what about a surgeon removing a ruptured appendix in order to save a life? Power, force is not qualified. How does it become qualified in terms of what we ordinarily think of as evil or good? Depends what a thinker does with that power. Implied in the preparation, the preparedness to be taught, there's a corresponding trust that whatever knowledge of reality that may be permitted to directly know, that there's a trust that's going to be honored. There's a basis that's often misunderstood about the old saying, cast not ye pearls before the swine. It's not just a condescending attitude of superiority. Far from it. It has to do that those unprepared with knowledge and have surges of power or psychic experiences, not only will they harm themselves, but all those that they encounter. There's a trust. In all the ancient mystery schools that we know of in the West, there were qualities, testing, probation to test the fitness of the candidate. The emphasis began on true character, morals, ethics, truthfulness. If one truly carried within their own being a sense of right and wrong, which translated in the ability to keep a secret. To honor the secrecy which was necessary for the right conditions that would ultimately permit a direct knowing. With each gift of understanding that in time with the right creation through self-effort, the creation of an instrument that can handle the power to use it without self-destruction. Let's change the topic. I'm getting into areas that would be incorrect for right now. The premise is that with the fitness, that whatever truth we may have, we have to use it practically, in service, in helping another, based on how whatever we are permitted to receive in trust, so goes our evolution. And in fact, there's a very basic premise. Until we have truly helped another that has reached a point that can benefit from what we know, there's no concept of even thinking of getting more knowledge or knowing more, because it would be useless. There is a very basic premise of the practicality and applicability to help another. And our test, the test of neophytes in this journey, in this quest, is how do we apply what questions. There's the whole subject of what are some of the qualities of a neophyte, one who wants to take on the path. There are the possible results. There's the misconception, for example, of that all speaking of psychic, or the difference between the lower entities and the higher, the spiritual and the psychic, is completely avoided, which from this perception, from my understanding, is incorrect. We're challenged to do it the right way, under law. Questions? Yes?
You were speaking about currents.
I'm sorry?
You were speaking about currents?
Currents.
Currents. And you focused on that quite a bit, and how certain thoughts are energized. So could you say a bit more? Do you mean specifically we enter the thought current of the masters or adepts? And can you say a little bit more about counteracting the negative forces with more benevolent forces?
If your attention is on duty and doing what's right, and you're occupied with that, is there any other thoughts entering your mind that can get you to go in a different direction? The battle begins with where our attention is, one way or the other. And let's think of it, there is that current inherent in this manifested universe which tends towards the universal. The poets speak about all true joy seeking the eternal. All true action increases our concept of unity, becomes more encompassing until there's no separation. There's an old saying that we begin this path selfish. It takes a strong, selfish personality to begin with to put the bit of self-discipline in his own mouth. From that perception, we practice being unselfish until it becomes ingrained as an aspect that we no longer have to think about it, and results in selflessness. That pursued manifests as one who is selfless. This gives a key to the question of current. Where do we give attention? It is said that the truest definition of the devil is consider all the worst thinking of collective humanity coalescing, manifesting in some thought form, and reflecting it back upon man from the astral, which one of its nature is to reflect all the thinking and actions of man back on to humanity. In fact, the occultists of the past referred this as the great turba, the first obstacle that one must free himself from. And the freeing himself from the influence and domination of that is associated with the testing of the path of probation. where one by one, as we identify that foreign influence that stands in the way of a direct knowing at first, that which is sacred, that which is the divine, that which is universal at the root of our nature, that's where we give the first effort. Again, by giving attention to the universal aspects that we are given to consider if we so choose. Another question? I talk too much. No questions? All the great books that are truly sourced from the teacher, there's a code. One of the most, again, we practice in private, we don't call attention to ourselves. There's a book from, it said, a master that when he succeeded in achieving something very special on this path of service, that this was his gift. A gift, if we can recognize it. And in it, at the very beginning, it gives a basic position. Before the eyes can see, it must be incapable of tears. Before the ear can hear, it must have lost its sensitivity to sound. Before we can speak in the presence of the Master, it must have lost its power to wound. Before we can stand in the presence of the Master, the feet must be bathed in the blood of the heart. It further goes on to say, the whole of Light on the Path is written in an astral cipher and can therefore only be deciphered by one who reads astrally. There's a misunderstood application by those who, perhaps we can say, approach only with the intellect. They see problems with grammar. Books from the last century are written in an awkward English. But those on the scene then, and perhaps on the scene today, they will tell you there is a code. There is a code that gives insight in the practical application of what seems so theoretical. And there are those, and they're not very popular in today's world, that dedicate themselves to the preservation, whether it's referred to as those original lines, don't distort the teachings, don't try to modernize. There's much that can do like that structure that in light of the collective student body manifesting deeper and deeper presentations to the needs of inquirers. But like music, there's how many basic notes? But in the hands of a creative, intuitive individual that grasps the nature of tone, sound, and rhythm, how many original pieces or how many manifestations of universal law that is consistent with divine proportion, that is consistent from the artist of whatever medium reflecting from his encounter with the plane of universal archetypes to manifest in whatever medium that he is working in, as long as it's consistent with the laws of divine proportion. Isn't that what is at the heart of the author writing a universal theme that has meaning to all, each to their understanding? Or the key of a Mona Lisa that has meaning to all those through time that appear it? What about the secrets of mathematics and orientations with astronomy and great universe inherent in structures like the pyramid built by Noahs. Another question. I'm going to refer to an idea that is not mine, but was generated with some thought with other students earlier today. The question was put, if you're a teacher and you have this knowledge, occult knowledge of the reality of existence, a knowledge of what is beyond what lies below the surface, which is the majority of what we are experiencing, what language would you use to preserve it through time and at the same time protect it from those that would use it with selfish motive to the detriment of others? What vehicle would you preserve this universal knowledge, this heritage of man which permits, if grasps, the experience of assimilation with that great totality which he is a part of? What language, what instrument would you use? Yes? Yes?
Maybe symbolism.
Symbolism? Is there only one form of symbolism?
No.
Anyone else? Can we think of other aspects that come under the topic of symbolism? Yes?
Mythology.
Mythology. Universal allegories that have to do with the true nature of man and his relationship and correspondence with all nature. Man, the little universe, microcosm, the macrocosm. Other ideas? Yes?
Divine proportion?
Divine proportion. Is that used only in architecture and mathematics? If you're
Music?
familiar with some of the works of Leonardo da Vinci, he applied it in art. It can be applied in music, in meter. And there's many applications. In fact, man himself, as we assimilate to the ideal, if it's correct, his very instrument reflects that divine proportion in his being as reflective of his true nature, which is the cause of what we see of each other. Think of it. We alter the instrument in light of our understanding through time. We build on our experience. We build on it. Has anyone ever traveled to Europe from the United States here and tried to plug something that runs on 110 volt into a 220 outlet? Do we know what? It's obvious. The instrument can't handle it. It self-destructs. There is a proportionate correspondence to the learning and application of this sacred knowledge in the increase of the capacities of the instrument. It's very easy to, if we're standing looking at an horizon, if I have a 1000x telescope and you have a jack-in-the-box prize that you see only 2x, and we're looking to understand where we're going, the one with the instrument of greater capacity has what? What advantage? It's not he's better or anything. More information, more knowledge of what he is going to experience if he continues in that direction to integrate to his discrimination. That's the difference. That's the difference between one that intellectual grasps ideas and one with the beginning of one truth practiced and applied. In martial arts, there's the saying that the mastery of one skill facilitates the mastery of all others. Another question. Is it okay with those? Have you had enough, or do we stop maybe at 8:30? I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to stop, or do you want to go a few minutes longer for questions? You got to give me some response. Have we had enough?
I have a question.
Yes.
What did you say about the year 1325?
1375.
75?
In that time period, there was a great battle in Tibet and what is now parts of India. From the time of Buddha, there was a misapplication, a degeneration, where there was the misuse of knowledge. One of those great immortals manifested, used an instrument for correction and reform. And there was a physical battle on this plane. In fact, it is said that that is the origination of the lineage of the Panchen Lama, or what is known as the Teshu Lama. And it's that lineage of higher depths that actually created what we know in the world today as the Dalai Lama. It is associated directly with those that preserve, protect, and guard humanity. It is that great source, which is the spiritual lineage of Theosophy. Any bringing into the understanding of Theosophy that which is inconsistent, which contradicts that expression, falls under the category of seeking another teacher with all its consequences. Becomes an outside influence to divert the attention to the true goal, no matter how high sounding it may be. Again, in speaking with some fellow students, a phrase came up: the forces of darkness always march under the banner of light. Woe to man, the evil done by the good in the name of good. Again, the injunction to discriminate, to think and apply to the touchstone of what is given from those that truly know, to seek whether it is consistent. Theosophy isn't a question of coming to this and, well, I agree with this, but I don't agree with that. I'm going to replace teachings on hypnotism because I think hypnotism can be used. You can think whatever you want as an individual, but that has nothing to do with the reality of what has been given as the body of knowledge referred to as Theosophy from those great teachers through the direct agents who were trained, who undergo a very long and difficult process of testing and preparation, that they could be trusted to be an instrument to present accurately, without distortion, the concepts needed for the race mind today. Very important to grasp that. Question. It said, we read about those that know the secret of immortality. One of, not only in the history of Theosophy, but many mystic traditions, there's a subject of successorship, or someone claiming to be the head or the replacement for a great teacher. If one understands this principle, the spiritual lineage and the great beings, the holy beings that are associated, that their will sustains the effort. Could there ever be a successor in the sense that individuals put forth? There can be helpers. There could be administrators. There can be those entrusted with aspects of the work, as long as they keep consistent and not add what they think is best. It's applying, which is at the root of the occult axiom, Father, thine will be done, not mine, as in heaven, so on earth. At the root of that, in the sense of occultism, is the understanding that in this path to reality, there has been a personal, direct experience of that which we truly is deserving and that which we voluntarily make obeisance to. Then in our learning and developing better instruments for service, all our energy, all our thought is how to apply what we have been fortunate to be given to further the aim and service of those great teachers wherever we are. It doesn't mean going off to foreign places. Wherever we are in life, where we encounter need, to be a light where that light shines not. We can be a warm breeze in a cold night. We can give some shelter on a stormy night to man or animal. It's by practicing wherever we are in the specifics of our life, that which we know, with right motive. The effect, cumulatively, of acting from that basis is the creation of what is known as that universal solvent, which solves and destroys the inherent selfishness. It's that which extinguishes the root of selfishness that all of us contain from ever growing again. I think that's enough. Thank you very much. Bring more questions. The better questions you have, any student will have the opportunity to give to the questions as much as the philosophy that can be given. Thank you.